Hi everyone. My topic is technology in education, the effects on student engagement. This was done by myself, Sherry Lutz, and I chose this topic because I can witness the influence of technology in the classroom. I've been teaching for about 10 years at a small private school out near Harrisburg, and we don't use a lot of technology in our room. They have access to a computer lab that they can use, but they aren't able to use the internet except on very limited basis. So this made me question, if the times are changing, should we also be adapting to this change as well? I was interested to learn the influences and if they help or hurt the student engagement. Using technology as we are growing older and learning how to use it, is it really something they should rely on, or should they still have the basic skills that they need if technology were to fail? Also, what types of technology are being used in the classrooms? I know there are the smart boards and computers and tablets using the internet, and what abilities they have to use this towards their engagement and staying involved in our classrooms. Some things I learned about my topic with the quantitative article that stressed the use of a gamified app, which showed a positive relationship in the student engagement. The students that used it showed that they were more active in their classes and that their grades actually had improved. The technology does continue to change, as well as the ability level that the students have with using the technology. So the more they use it, the more adapted they are going to become to it. It was a source of application that could prove to be extremely useful in getting students more involved in their education. The more fun they have with the program or the application, the more they're going to want to learn. For my qualitative article, they used a semi-structured interview process as well as written questionnaires, and I found that they could be extremely useful and beneficial when doing the research. They were kept anonymous when the feedback was provided, which I think became a more well-rounded way to assess the information. They did use the use of technology. They found out that the students responded that when it is used appropriate and adequately, that they can keep the students staying engaged, and but it can have an adverse effect if the teacher doesn't know how to use the technology that they are applying to their classroom. As for my mixed methods article, this went along with the quantitative and qualitative articles very well in supporting the research. They used the charts and student responses to explain the results of the research, which helps in understanding the relationship between the information. They addressed the fact that technology is changing and that further research should be done. All three articles did stress the fact that further research should be done, especially with the use of technology, since it is so quick in changing. As we know, in our generation, we didn't necessarily grow up with the technology, but we have had to learn to adapt to it and respond to it appropriately. The references for my three articles: the mixed method was the evolving classroom, a study of traditional and technology-based instruction in a STEM classroom, which I know most curriculums are starting to gear more towards the technology use. For my qualitative article, it was factors influencing student engagement and the role of technology in higher education. There were a couple other issues that were discussed in that article, as well as the campus that the students attended, but it mostly focused on the technology. Excuse me. For my quantitative article, using a gamified mobile app to increase student engagement, retention, and academic achievement, I found that one probably the most interesting, just because of the technology and the availability of that to the students. Some general thoughts. Again, I found the topic extremely interesting and applicable to today's society. I already work in the classroom, so I was interested to learn more about the various forms of technology that I could possibly incorporate into my classroom if my school does permit it. With doing research like this and being able to consume it in an appropriate way and an adequate way, that I could actually form a better case to incorporate the technology into my classroom and to the school. I have learned a good deal about these types of research that has been done about my topic and what could be done in the future. Because of this class, it has taught me how to analyze the material, to understand that it is not necessarily accurate or true just because it is educational research. After evaluating the research, I found that the results were very positive in regards to my topic of technology in the classroom, if the technology is used appropriately. If it is not used appropriately, again, it's not going to be beneficial to the students. As far as consuming research and advice that I have, the research can be confusing if you don't know what to look for. In taking this class, I think we all can agree that we have a better understanding of the items and topics to look into. And it was very interesting information as far as the class and my topic is concerned. I feel that if you don't have interesting information and you aren't interested in the topic, that you aren't going to consume it to the best of your ability. Different methods of research are available as far as the quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods, and you have to find out what is best for your subject matter. The difference between the three types of research and which is best based off the information being studied is very important and helps, again, to determine which one is best available for you. I've also learned how to look for different biases and limitations in the research. I think we all have possibly done this. And that it is very important and helps us to understand that the research isn't necessarily 100% all the time. Some advice is to make sure that you read your research thoroughly. Don't just look at the abstract. You have to look at the article as a whole and the dates for it. Before this class, I didn't realize necessarily that that was as important as it is. You need to make sure that it is appropriate for the research that you're doing, especially with my topic of technology. If it's more than 5 years old, it's probably out of date and not necessarily applicable to the subject. You also can't just assume that the research is the best source of information. One article is not going to be sufficient enough to prove what you are trying to prove. You need to make sure you're looking at other things as well. Some suggestions that I have that complete further studies to include a wider range of academic subjects. My topics or my articles that I read were very focused in the subject matter, especially with the gamified app in my quantitative article. It looked at two specific classes, accounting and science. Would it be applicable to other subjects as well? Participants of varying grade levels and learning levels should be included to see how technology influences all students, not just one grade level, say like 9th grade, but would it be applicable to, say, maybe 1st grade students? Also, the different learning levels. Would it be applicable for English language learners? Would it be for special education? How would it help those students as well? Also, to conduct a study to see if there are negative effects on the students. I think that would be really important as well. I know my one article did mention that if it is not used appropriately and adequately, that it can have a negative effect on student engagement. But are the students going to be successful if the technology fails? I know that technology is heavily relied on today, and I will continue to be in the future. But are students still going to be able to write and edit papers if Microsoft Word fails or whatever word processing feature that they're using on their computer or tablet? What if the power goes out? What if they still need to write the paper and they have no other source to do it other than pencil and paper? Are they going to be effective? That is all I have for my presentation today. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to hearing the rest of yours as well. Bye.